If you're wondering where Disney's going to be putting the Avatar experience in the Disneyland Resort, we may have just gotten confirmation from none other than Bob Iger himself. Also in the news, if you're looking for a sign that Disney has any plans of ending the reservation system, this ain't it. But we'll get into that in a minute. Let's talk first about that Avatar experience. Back in April, Disney held its annual shareholders meeting. Now, this is not a meeting typically designed to hype up any sort of planned projects or to break news per se. It's a shareholders meeting. Nonetheless, Bob Iger did mention the Avatar experience. He did show this piece of concept art. This art represents Disney's current vision for the Avatar experience, destined for somewhere at the Disney Resort. And the art is beautiful. It's inspirational. It's very Pandora. I love it. And it got everyone really excited and re-inspired the conversation. The question, where will the Avatar experience go in the Disneyland Resort? That question was further intensified when just after the shareholders meeting ended, Josh D'Amaro jumps on the mic. He enters the chat and he's got this to say. Per Josh D'Amaro, we were thrilled to unveil a piece of inspirational artwork developed for a potential new Avatar experience at the Disneyland Resort. We are excited about the stories our guests could experience, not will, but could experience at Walt's original theme park destination after approval of Disneyland Forward, including the chance to experience all new Avatar adventures with a visit to Pandora. The key words in that very wordy statement are Avatar, Pandora, Disneyland Forward. Was Josh D'Amaro suggesting or inferring that the Avatar experience, Pandora, is contingent upon approval of Disneyland Forward from the city of Anaheim? Important question, because up until now, many had assumed that it was going to be an update, a reskin of an existing land here at the Disneyland Resort. Tomorrowland, Grizzly Peak, Hollywood Backlot. Those are the three most common suggestions. The latter two, Grizzly and the Hollywood Backlot, were the leaders in the clubhouse, with some saying that they absolutely knew that's where it was going to go. They were certain. To me, Grizzly Peak seemed to be the most logical because, the land itself is already sort of predisposed to that kind of aesthetic, obviously. But then they also had attractions that, kind of lined up quite nicely with the existing attractions that we know already at Pandora and Walt Disney World at Animal Kingdom. But I hated that idea, mostly because I love Grizzly Peak, just as it is. It's the most underrated land probably in the entire resort. And I didn't want to see it go away. And I didn't feel like it was a big enough upgrade, aesthetically speaking anyway. Probably it would draw more guests. Certainly it would draw more guests. But would it be enough to accommodate the $1 billion or $2 billion price tag to build Pandora? Hollywood Backlot, meanwhile, was a good idea in my opinion because, well, as much as I like Grizzly Peak, that's how much I don't like the Hollywood Backlot. It's a complete waste of space. Has absolutely no, there's no Disney quality to it at all. I would love for some excuse for them to take a sledgehammer to that entire land and build something new. Would love it. My problem with Hollywood Backlot, actually one of a couple major problems of the Backlot, is that it's simply too small. It is not a serious land. It's not nearly big enough. Certainly not big enough for something that would be Avatar appropriate. So I have to believe, and I have believed and said in the past, that these were plan Bs. So with that, what is plan A? Let's ask Bob Iger, who recently spoke at the Moffett-Nathanson Media, Internet, and Communications Conference. During a wide-ranging interview, Iger did speak specifically about the Avatar experience, the one that is coming to Disneyland. Per Bob Iger.
We have just gotten approval from the city of Anaheim for the biggest expansion of Disneyland really since we opened California Adventure in 2001, so in over 2 decades. And it's a huge expansion. We haven't been specific about what will be in it, except for Avatar, which, going back to the flywheel, by the way, is an extremely successful land in Orlando. So that's one.
There you go. I got to say, where I was pretty confident about the things that Josh D'Amaro said, and that leading me to think that Avatar was heading to Disneyland Forward, I am now positive that that's the plan. Plan A is Disneyland Forward. And it's the best possible option, in my opinion. It's not even close. You get to build a land completely from scratch, from the ground up. There are no limitations, nothing to overcome such as you might experience if you were trying to reskin a land or reskin an attraction. For example, there's, as I mentioned, not enough room at the Hollywood backlot. You're not trying to fit an attraction in the Soarin' or Little Mermaid buildings. Meanwhile, how do you create a smooth transition from Buena Vista Street into Pandora? None of that is a problem if you can build it from scratch, from the ground up, in a completely empty and vacant lot, such as you would find in one of those Disneyland Forward lots. Disneyland Forward makes room to build at the Simba parking lot, the Downtown Disney parking lot, the Disneyland Hotel parking lot, or even possibly the Toy Story parking lot. That is Plan A, the best possible plan for building the Avatar experience. And it's something that universe deserves, requires even. The Avatar experience requires a full and complete commitment, 100% and more. They cannot go halvesies on an Avatar experience. I'm not saying that because Avatar is this great IP. I'm saying that universe is so specific and so the way it looks, you just can't drop an Avatar skin on top of a pre-existing space, in my opinion. Even better though, not only is it the best possible way to build the experience Disneyland Forward, it's also possibly the quickest. I'll get into that in a second, but it's a fascinating observation, and it gets me excited about the potential. Now, as I mentioned before though, there had to be contingency plans. Certainly, anything that you or I could come up with as an armchair enthusiast of Disney theme parks, we could say, yeah, they should put it in Tomorrowland, get rid of Autopia. We could put it in the Hollywood backlot, it sucks anyway. We could put it in Grizzly Peak because it looks like that already. Anything that we could conceive of, I'm sure Disney Imagineers could conceive of as well. It is quite likely that there were contingency plans in place, detailed plans, other concept art, schematics, draftings, models, schematics showing how they can convert Soarin' into something like Flight of Passage, or concept art to show exactly how they're going to transition those guests, as I mentioned, from Hollywood Boulevard into Pandora in just a small, tiny amount of space. And that's something that I've commented before in the past, that at Animal Kingdom, they've got days to transition you from outside of Pandora to inside of Pandora. And part of that has to do with the fact that the whole land really is Grizzly Peak, right? We don't have that luxury anywhere in the Disneyland Resort, either at DCA or at Disneyland. But we could at Disneyland Forward. But all of that was pending approval from the city of Anaheim to allow Disney to change how certain parcels that they own, i.e. the Simba parking lot, change those from parking only to whatever the heck we want. Approval that they did get last week, and now they can start to speak more freely about things, I think. Before, they couldn't commit. They couldn't commit to any kind of plan. They would just allude to it, suggest it, because they didn't know what they were going to do. They didn't know what they could do. Plan A was Disneyland Forward. And now here's the even better part. As we mentioned, the best option is to build it from the ground up, from scratch, in a Disneyland Forward space. It's also possibly the quickest route. Probably is definitely the quickest route if you think about it. I will say that my original thought was that nothing could happen with regard to Disneyland Forward until they settled the parking issue. Everything that they're talking about, all of the expansions that they're talking about are existing or would exist in spaces that are currently used for parking. Simba parking lot, Downtown Disney parking lot, Disneyland Hotel parking lot, and the Toy Story parking lot. All of those are parking lots. And I felt like you couldn't do anything. You couldn't make any sort of progress until you first reconciled where are you going to put all those cars that you displace as you start to build theme park. But one thing that I have observed recently is that it's possible that you could perhaps demo, let's say, the Simba parking lot today, right now, without there being any major cost to guests or cast members parking in that space. That's where Simba Lot is right now. Simba Lot is for downtown Disney guests and for cast members who are working in the surrounding areas at DCA or one of the hotels or even at downtown Disney. But you could possibly replace those cars somewhere else in available parking spaces today. Cast members could be rerouted to the Mickey and Friends or Pixar Palace parking structure. Those lots as best as I can tell, are hardly ever, maybe never, completely full. They could definitely set aside, I would think, a floor or two for cast members. Or, if that's not enough space, there's plenty of space at the Toy Story parking lot. The back half of the Bullseye lot is always empty. There's never any guests or cars parked there. They could park those cast members there and then bust them in, something that they have done in the past as well. Or you could even split them. The cast members that would have parked at Simba, send those to the Bullseye lot. The cast members that would have parked at the downtown Disney parking lot, send those to the Pixar Pals lot. You could probably do that for both lots, actually, for the Simba lot and the downtown Disney parking lot. And then, by the way, for those guests who are trying to go to downtown Disney, instead of parking at Simba, you send them back to where they used to park originally, what we still call today the downtown Disney parking lot. Let guests park there instead. The bottom line is, however you set that up, I do think it is at least conceivable, possible, that you could actually account for those spots, account for those guests parking elsewhere today in the parking lots as we know them. They could even do those things at the same time. They could even start developing, demoing one of those lots, at least the Simba lot, let's say. We could even start doing that today, while also concurrently beginning to build the Eastern Gateway on the other side of Harbor Boulevard. And I mention that because it is necessary, it is still ideal for Disney to build the Eastern Gateway as soon as possible, because I mean, it's eventually you are going to have to, because you're going to be building more theme park, a lot more theme park, you need more parking spaces. So the Eastern Gateway still has to happen, and on a timely nature. But all those logistics aside, the big takeaway here is that Bob Iger, in his comments, that is now the second time that a Disney executive, a Disney president, the chief executive for that matter, has used the words Avatar, Pandora, expansion, and Disneyland Forward all in the same breath. If you're looking for signals about where Avatar is going to go, apart from them just saying it outright, which, by the way, I do think we're going to be hearing from them soon. But apart from that, I don't think you could do better than what Bob Iger has just said. If you're looking for the clearest possible inference, that's it. Meanwhile, if you're looking for signals that Disney is interested in ending the reservation system at the Disneyland Resort, this one is pretty strong too. Yesterday, it was observed that the page where Magic Key holders make their reservations, there was a small observable change on how that page looks. In the past, when beginning the process of booking a reservation, the Magic Key holder could see only how many of their reservation slots they had remaining. In this case, I had 1 of 6 reservations available. Now, in addition to the spaces available, you can see also how many no-shows you have of your allotted 3, which really is 2, if we're being honest. You don't get a third no-show. That third no-show is when you get locked out. You can't go to the park anymore. So really what you get are 2 no-shows. And the third one, you're out. Now, that aside, this is a really nice feature. It's a needed feature. Until now, how many no-shows you had was kind of a mystery. You simply needed to remember. You just had to know. If you were to ask Disney, how many no-shows do I have? They wouldn't tell you how many you had. They would say, you got to go look at your emails and count how many no-show emails have you received from Disney, which I don't know, you're probably not like me, but my inbox from Disney destinations with respect to reservations is like spam at this point. I make so many reservations. I get an email for the reservation. I get an email for if I cancel. I get an email if I change it, if I modify it, and obviously I get one if I no-show. There's a lot of emails. I can't keep track of all that. But now we know. And actually, it's interesting. This actually makes me more likely to no-show than I might have in the past. In the past, I would be, kind of like, gosh, I don't know, when was the last, I had a no-show, but was that 2 months ago or 3 months ago? Or I can't remember. So, you would just choose to try to, you do the check-in and check-out thing to avoid that strike because you weren't sure where you stood. Now that I can see how many no-shows I have, I might be more willing to no-show on a day, knowing that I still have one more available to me. It's a nice addition, albeit one that should have been in place from the very beginning. But at least they got there. They're here now, and it's a welcome, positive addition. But that's not the story. The story is that in doing this, Disney has also shown that they are still well invested in the reservation system, especially for Magic Key holders. They have applied budget and man hours to something that, if there were no reservation system, would be completely unnecessary. Unnecessary if it didn't exist, or even unnecessary if they had plans for it in the future, or if they were even just thinking about it, they wouldn't have made this change. This tells me that ending the reservation system is not even on the table. It's not even being considered. It is still very much here and part of our lives. Now, certainly there's still hope that the reservation system could end for single day and multi-day ticket holders. That's the way that things have progressed in the past over at Walt Disney World. That was the first thing that went, was the single day, multi-day ticket holders. And frankly, making those guests, the single day ticket holders, make a reservation is just ludicrous in my opinion. From a guest perspective, you're literally inhibiting people from making that choice to go to Disneyland. And isn't that really what you want, is for them to just go? You want them to go, don't you? Why would you sell a discounted ticket if you didn't want them to go? Obviously, they're not selling enough tickets if they're discounting them. It's times like this when I wonder if I really understand business. I digress. We'll save this for the conversation, the off-the-cuff part of this video that I'll do when I wrap everything up. It's a little more understandable. I'll get back to the script. It's a little more understandable for them to maintain a reservation system for Magic Key holders. Mostly because of how popular Magic Keys are here, or can be if Disney were to let them, which currently they are. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. There is a conversation that could be had as far as that goes. One could imagine a lot of Magic Key holders in the parks consuming up a lot of space. If there were no inhibitions, they would show up for a couple hours and then go home, the way it used to be. But, it's funny because the way it used to be worked. I'm getting off track. Today, where we stand is that the reservation system is absolutely still a priority for Disney, for everyone, single-day ticket holders, multi-day ticket holders, and Magic Key holders. And this little quiet, innocuous update that they've made to their system is a very clear symbol of that, a very clear sign of that. I want to hear your thoughts, though, FreshBaked. I want to know what you think, especially about the Avatar stuff. I mean, does that excite you? Do you agree? Does it seem very logical that the two statements that we've heard from Josh D'Amaro, president of parks, and Bob Iger, president of the entire company, both have said Disneyland Forward, Pandora, Avatar, expansion, and all those things in the same sentence, in the same breath? You got to think that's where it's going. Let us know in the comments below. And then if you enjoyed the show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. You can also follow us on Instagram at _freshbaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like this show, and I just said that thing again, I'm still getting used to this outro. Thank you guys very much for watching our show. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And FreshBaked. I mean, I could really... I could go on and on about the reservation system. And I hope that people understand, because I certainly do get comments from folks who don't understand where I'm coming from when I start talking about the reservation system. It's not from a selfish perspective, not in the least. I mean, I don't like it and I don't want it, but I can deal with it. I have a very solid method of trying to extract reservations when I need them, or working around, sometimes I don't go and then I just change my plans. But I'm very diligent and I work hard at making reservations, and it's part of my daily routine now of checking that calendar. So I make do. I'm fine. I can make reservations how I want them, and I don't worry about it too much. I'm never pressed about missing a specific big day. So that's not where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is both from a business perspective, and by the way, this is all ad-lib now at this point. This is off the script. From a business perspective, I don't get it because, as I mentioned, you are inhibiting people from making that decision. I feel like they're people talk about in business friction, that they're trying to reduce friction in decision-making processes. So they're trying to separate guests from slowing down that process and getting them to yes quicker. The reservation system is a huge friction point. So, and it's something that I've been saying for a long time. Disney knows this. It's not like their business is stupid. You know what I mean? It's not like they're big dummies out there and they have no idea what they're doing. These are savvy business people. So there must be some other payoff for them to keep this guest unfriendly policy in place, in spite of the fact that there is nowhere, not even in other Disney parks, do they have this now. Basically, Walt Disney World is wide open. Basically, they have the good to go days. It's kind of stupid, but it is more than ever. It is easy to get into Walt Disney World. But why? For some reason, they stick to things here at Disneyland. It's not a very good business decision in that respect. But also, I don't like it because they're not honest about it. They're not honest about it because they try to tell you that it's for the guest experience. The park is too crowded. We're going to solve that for you by creating this reservation system to inhibit people from showing up. And that's baloney. That's just total baloney. I don't believe that for a second. And for the idea that they're using this to keep the crowds at an acceptable level for our benefit is ludicrous, because we've been in the parks on massively busy days post-COVID. There have been days that are just nuts. And so why were those days allowed to get to that point if Disney was truly interested in keeping crowds to a minimum? That's not the reason. People have also suggested, and this Disney has even said this, it's about supply chains. It's about staffing. It's about making sure that they have everything there for guests ready when they need it, and maybe not to have it ready when they don't need it. On slower days, you have fewer people in the park, fewer whatever. Also baloney. Also baloney. Disney's been in this business for 70 years, coming up on 70 years. And they know what they're doing. They know, they know when it's going to be busy. They know when it's not. They know how many staff they need. They know how many, churros they need to have on hand. They know. They don't need this system to tell them that. They don't need the reservation system to tell them that. They already know. This is 100% about them trying to control when we're in the park, what days we're there, etc. Beating a dead horse, but I just feel like I wanted to clarify that at the end here because, the reservation system is just a hot button for me. It's one of the few things where I really dig in. I'm very pro-Disney. I'm like 95% there. I would jump in traffic for the Disney company and for the Disneyland Resort specifically. I really would. I would die on a battlefield, figuratively speaking. But on this, I can't be. I don't think I could be dissuaded. There's just nothing that you could tell me that would convince me that the reservation system is necessary from the guest perspective for my benefit. It's for my benefit, wide open. That's my benefit. Letting it be wide open, at least for single day and multi-day ticket holders. Golly, those folks who are just willing to pay, if they're willing to pay $150 to show up at 2 p.m., let them, please. They're not going to get, they're not going to roll up and told they can't come in. The park hasn't been like that ever, really. And even in the worst case scenarios, back in the day, people will talk about how the parks were so busy they had to close the gates. Yeah, for an hour. Okay, for an hour or two until some folks left and then let some more people in. And those days they were so rare. 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. And those on very predictable days where you could sort of say, hey, be careful, New Year's Eve, it could be bonkers out there. It could be at 5 p.m. people are going to start showing up, or in a given holiday or something like that. You could kind of see it coming. I'm looking forward to Avatar, you guys. I want Pandora, and I want Disneyland Forward. I want it to happen right now. I'm hoping. I did a video where I actually went on location, and I scouted all the parking lots. I scouted Simba, Disneyland Hotel, Downtown Disney, Toy Story. I actually walked around the entire parking lot. It was exhausting, you guys. I spent half a day doing this. It was exhausting, but I scouted it, shot on location, talked about the potential, and one of the first things I mentioned in our Simba section was that I believe Simba is going to be the home of Pandora. That's what I believe. Or at least that's what I'm asking for. It makes sense on a lot of different levels, and it's possible. So, anyway, I'm done. I have to go edit this now. I'll see you guys later. FreshBaked. Gotta turn off my backlight. There it goes. See you guys.